Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is October 4th. On this day in 2011, outside of a prison unit in East Texas, a 57-year-old man named Michael Morton stepped into freedom for the first time in nearly 25 years. He had been locked away since the 1980s for the murder of his wife, Christine. But on this day, a judge had just set aside his conviction. DNA evidence that he had been begging to test for years, showed what he'd been saying all along. Michael hadn't killed his wife. Someone else had. Today, we're talking about the exoneration of Michael Morton and the hunt for his wife's real killer. Let's get started. The story began 25 years earlier. On the morning of August 13th, 1986, 31-year-old Christine Morton was found bludgeoned to death in the home she shared with Michael in Williamson County, just north of Austin, Texas. The scene, at first glance, suggested an intruder. Christine's body was covered with bedding. Her purse was gone, and a sliding glass door was open. In the days after, someone used her credit card in San Antonio, and a forged check in her name was cashed. All of it suggested a stranger with a financial motive, not a domestic fight. But investigators didn't go that way. Almost immediately, they turned to Michael. He had left a note on the bathroom mirror before heading to his early morning shift at the grocery store. The note said that he was upset that his birthday had passed without intimacy. Prosecutors built a story around that note. According to them, Morton had snapped after Christine refused birthday sex, and in a rage, he killed her. But while jurors heard that story, they didn't hear other things. They didn't hear that the neighbors had seen a strange man in a green van lurking near the Morton home. They didn't hear that Christine and Michael's 3-year-old son had told his grandmother that a monster in red gloves had hurt his mother, and that Daddy wasn't home. There was no physical evidence tying Michael to the crime. He had no history of violence. But in 1987, the story the prosecution told carried the day. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. Michael Morton always said that he was innocent. For years, his lawyers fought to test one specific piece of evidence, a blue bandana that was found near the house the day after the murder. It sounds so simple now, right? Just run the test. But back then, the courts in Williamson County refused. For years, prosecutors argued that DNA wouldn't prove anything. In 2006, limited tests were allowed, but nothing conclusive came back. Then, in 2008 and 2009, the tide started to shift. The Texas Attorney General ordered prosecutors to hand over files. And inside those files, Michael's defense team found the reports that the jury hadn't seen. The neighbors spotting the green van, Christine's credit card being used after her death, and that little boy's statement about the monster. Still, the bandana remained untested until 2010, when the Court of Appeals finally ordered it. And in 2011, the results came in. Christine's blood was on it, and so was the DNA of another man, a man who wasn't Michael Morton. When that profile went into CODIS, the national database, it got a hit. Mark Allen Norwood, a felon with a long criminal history. He would later be tied not just to Christine's murder, but also to the 1988 killing of another woman, Deborah Baker, in Austin. On October 3rd, 2011, prosecutors and Morton's lawyers went before a judge and agreed. The conviction had to be vacated. The very next day, October 4th, Michael Morton walked free. After nearly 25 years, he was no longer a convicted murderer. The headlines called it an exoneration, and the courtroom called it justice delayed. For Michael, it was a new beginning that came a generation too late. The DNA didn't just clear Michael, it pointed squarely at Mark Norwood. In 2013, a jury in Tom Green County convicted Norwood of murdering Christine Morton. He got life in prison. 3 years later, another jury convicted him of Deborah Baker's murder as well. 2 life sentences, finally tying 2 crimes to the same man. But while Norwood faced justice, the legal system also had to reckon with itself. In 2013, a rare court of inquiry examined whether Ken Anderson, the prosecutor who tried Michael's case and who by then was a sitting judge, had violated his duty by withholding evidence. After days of testimony, a warrant was issued for his arrest. Anderson eventually pleaded no contest to the charge of contempt of court. He gave up his law license and served a short jail sentence. It was a small punishment compared to the decades that Morton had lost, but it was almost unheard of in American law, a prosecutor behind bars, however briefly, for misconduct. And there was political fallout too. John Bradley, the district attorney who fought DNA testing for years, lost his bid for re-election in 2012. The case had reshaped not only lives, but careers as well. When Michael Morton was released from prison, he didn't just go home and stay quiet. He fought for change. Along with lawmakers, he pushed for a new law requiring prosecutors in Texas to share their files openly with the defense. In 2013, Governor Rick Perry signed it into law. It's called the Michael Morton Act. It ensures what happened in his trial, evidence being hidden and defense lawyers being kept in the dark, can't happen so easily again. Freedom gave Michael Morton back his life, but not the years that he lost. In interviews, he talked about the small joys, driving his own truck, renting a house near his parents, and holding his grandchild. The hardest part was rebuilding his relationship with his son, who had been only 3 when Christine was killed and grew up believing that his father had done it. Michael remarried in 2013, choosing to celebrate with donations to the Innocence Project instead of with gifts. His story was told in the documentary An Unreal Dream, and he wrote a memoir called Getting Life. On October 4th, 2011, Michael Morton walked out of prison after 25 years for a crime that he didn't commit. It was the day that his long fight for truth finally broke through. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found this episode compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!